Club.
Okay, so I am now going to try to use the recording opportunity. Let's see. I'm going to try to share my screen, and Brendan
Yep,
is
your co-host. Yep.
to do that. So, all right. So I press the share the screen button, and I'm going to share the other screen, this screen over here. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen with
The email. Yep.
the stuff with the email on it. Okay, so um, so in case you have, I don't know if this is going to work if I can just play it if it works. So let me try this. So I'm just going to say that this video that Brendan made goes a long way to explain it. So just to give you an idea, community solar has been a docket for New Orleans since 2018. That's why there's an 18 in the name of this docket. Okay, it started in 2018, and there's a long list of things they did wrong and right and so forth. But to give you a perspective of what's going on, the docket was created first in 2018 and it resulted in a decision in 2019 and no one built any community solar farms. And then in 2021 and 22, Madison Energy Industries, EMI, um, MEI, sorry, decided they were going to restart the docket because they wanted to get involved in community solar. And they had a whole business plan. And they told us all the ways we needed to change to meet their business plan because we really wanted community solar, so we were willing to do it. And the last thing on their list was the issue that's still left in this docket, namely how to do the billing. So let's watch the video. Yeah, I should tell you the video. The video that we're about to see is a full explanation of this motion here. The motion here is, you know, we want to establish community solar dockets, but in order for us to do it, we need an evidentiary hearing. And if we don't get the evidentiary hearing, then we can't do what you asked us to do, which is to do consolidated billing. Okay. All right. So now let's watch the video so you can see what we're talking about. And this is a better explanation that I can give, and I'll annotate it after watching.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've also attached a handout in the chat. You're welcome to download it and follow
So
along.
picture this. You could get a discount on your power bill with clean energy even if you rent your apartment. That's the whole promise behind something called community solar, and it's coming to New Orleans. But this huge step forward has gotten stuck on what seems like a tiny detail, how your utility bill should look. And believe it or not, that small detail has kicked off a massive debate about who should actually pay for our green future. Okay, let's get right into the heart of this thing. The way it works now, if you sign up for community solar, you're going to get two different bills. One from your utility, Entergy, and another one from the solar company. The proposal on the table is to just combine them. Get one single bill from Entergy that shows everything. Your energy use, your solar credits, the whole shebang. Sounds simple, right? Well, it turns out it's not that simple at all. All right, so on one side of this argument, you have this big coalition of community groups, solar companies, and they're all saying this one little change is absolutely essential. Groups like Together New Orleans and the Alliance for Affordable Energy, they're arguing that getting two separate bills is just confusing. They say it creates a roadblock, especially for the low-income residents this program is really meant to help. Their whole goal here is to make signing up for solar dead simple. So for them, this is way more than just a matter of convenience. They see it as a key for making the program fair and successful. They keep calling it a nationwide best practice. Basically, a proven method to make sure people can clearly see their savings and to take the financial risk off the table for residents. But then you have the other side. The city's utility, Entergy New Orleans, or ENO for short, is pushing back. And let me tell you, they are pushing back hard. ENO's first big argument is about the cost, and they put a number on it that really makes you stop and think. $212 million. That's how much they estimate this program will end up shifting onto the bills of customers who aren't even signed up for community solar, and that's over the next 20 years. And you remember that nationwide best practice claim we just talked about? Well, ENO takes a direct shot at that idea with their own data. So ENO's research paints a very, very different picture. They point out that of all the states that have community solar programs, that's 44 states, the vast majority, 35 of them, do not use this consolidated billing system. This fact just flies in the face of the claim that it's some kind of standard practice. And it's not just about the cost. NO is basically saying, you're asking us to fund the billing operations for companies that are our direct competitors. They're also raising some pretty serious red flags about how stable the solar industry is, pointing to recent layoffs and even bankruptcies. Their argument is that it's just too risky for the utility, and by extension, its customers, to take on that instability. You know, this isn't some new fight that just popped up. The New Orleans City Council has actually looked at this exact proposal twice before. The first time, they said there wasn't enough information. The second time, they cited valid concerns. So the fact that the council suddenly did a 180 this past summer, well, that's exactly why E&O is escalating this whole thing now. And that brings us to where we are today. This whole thing has kind of morphed from a debate about a billing system into a fight over how a decision this big should even be made. It's really become a fight over evidence. E&O is basically saying that to weigh all the risks fairly, like the risk of a solar company going out of business, the council needs to see the real numbers, the actual business plans from these companies. So during the legal discovery process, they asked for them. Simple as that. But what was the response from the solar companies? A hard no. In their official filings, they said their financial data is competitively sensitive and proprietary, and they just flat out refused to hand it over. Okay. This next part really gets to the core of why E&O is so frustrated. When they asked one of the solar groups for data on programs in other states, the very programs being used as evidence, the official response they got back was that E&O should just use a Google search and/or AI. Seriously. For E&O, this was the breaking point. They're arguing that a decision that could cost their customers over $200 million and completely rework their billing systems, it just can't be based on talk and a refusal to provide data. It has to be based on a proven, factual record. So how do you even begin to solve a problem like this? Well, NO's solution is to demand something called an evidentiary hearing. The best way to think about it is like a formal trial, but for regulators. It's designed specifically to get all the facts out on the table before anyone makes a decision. In a process like this, both sides would have to bring in experts to give sworn testimony. They'd have to submit all their financial models and data as official evidence. And here's the really crucial part. Lawyers for the other side would get to cross-examine those experts. Then, and only then, would a final decision be made, based only on what was proven in the hearing. So what started as a seemingly simple question about how to design a utility bill has blown up and revealed a much, much deeper conflict. This is not just a technical squab. When you really break it all down, you see what this is. It's a fundamental disagreement over who should take on the costs and the risks of our transition to green energy. On one side, you have advocates who see this as a necessary administrative cost for a public good. Their goal is to maximize solar adoption. On the other side, the utility sees a huge unfair cost being pushed onto all its other customers, and they're demanding a fact-based process to make sure everything is stable and fair for everyone. This whole fight in New Orleans is really a perfect snapshot of a question that cities all across the country are facing right now. As we try to build the future of energy, we have to decide whose job is it to build the bridge and who's going to pay the toll.
I want to stop right here because it's ironic and completely accidental. Who's going to build the bridge to the future? And in fact, that is one of the proposals we put in the resilience docket. Namely, we want to build a bridge to the future using a very different approach. So it's funny they use those terms, even though this is a different docket. So I thank you very much, Brendan. You did a great job providing this to us. And however, there's a lot of things in this video which are besides the point. And it isn't because the software notebook LM didn't take it directly from Entergy. It's because Entergy contains arguments that are besides the point. So let's go over those arguments. So let's see. So one of the things that they say is there's a $212 million cost shift. That cost shift has absolutely nothing to do with consolidated billing. That cost shift occurs because of the way they decided to pay people for community solar. Good or bad, the city council decided we want to do it, just like there's an argument that net metering causes the cost shift. And the cost shift notion that's true in both cases is you're going to pay people in a retail for something that's wholesale. The wholesale price of electricity is around 3 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And the retail price is 12 cents. So if you're going to pay something for a quantity you pay for a quantity at the retail price that's actually a wholesale quantity, then somebody has to pay for it. Now, the reason why net metering does it anyway is because the city council decided, okay, we want to do it. We don't mind if there's a cost shift. And it turns out the Entergy figured out it wasn't a big cost shift. And way back in 2018 or 2017, wasn't a big cost shift. So they never stopped net metering, even though Louisiana stopped net metering when they heard about the cost shift. This is the same cost shift. And with prorate, which is not what we're talking about, a different rate design, there would be no cost shift. But again, that's not where we're trying to promote today. So it's a red herring talking about the $212 million. Another red herring is the viability of the solar companies. That's really irrelevant. Why is that? Because if a person buys into a community solar farm, they don't have to buy in by paying for the solar farm by buying 10% or 3% or 5%. They can rent as their ownership into the solar farm. They don't have to buy in. So if the solar farm fails, they don't pay for it the next month, period. So the viability of the solar company is irrelevant to this whole discussion as well. So what is relevant? What's relevant is what does it cost to build the software? The software to allow consolidated billing. That's the only thing that this bridge needs to build, the software. And we claim that the software argument is bogus, and I'll explain why. So let me get back to the announcement. So what I said is,
do you think, Myron, do you think the cost shift, the initial point that you're saying is a red herring, do you think that Entergy will just get stuck on that and their attorneys will try to hammer that one? You can call it a red herring, but how is it going to be presented and how is it going to be received?
The issue, Entergy lost the battle on whether or not we're going to pay everyone the retail price. They didn't want it. That's decided. So that $200 million is a cost shift. It's built into the program. That's not what's on the table. City council decided everything. They decided, and the logic was this. When they got into the midst of this argument, the question is how much should be the remuneration for community solar? And in the previous docket that started in 2018 and ended in 2019, it was a much lower figure, wound up around 6 or 7 cents per kilowatt hour was the remuneration, which wasn't a lot more than wholesale. And Entergy was happy and everybody was happy, except the fact that we didn't get any community solar farms because the numbers didn't pencil. Because the reason why the numbers didn't pencil is because not everyone, but a significant percentage of the people wanted 2 to 5 megawatt community solar farms. And if they weren't that big, what's the point? So in case that number is daunting, a rooftop solar array is on the average of 5 or 10 cents a kilowatt.
Sorry.
Is that your dog, Dan? Okay, so I've got one too, but he's not so noisy. So anyway, so if you want your community solar farms to be 2 to 5 megawatts, which is around 1,000 times bigger than a rooftop solar array, then somebody has to put up $25 million in the cost of the land and the construction and blah, blah, blah. You've got a lot of money to spend, and you've got to make sure there's a cash flow. And when we calculate the whole thing out, they actually got NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, about 4 years ago to assert that if you want to pay for this, you need to make the remuneration at least 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, the difference between the 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour and retail was negligible, so they decided they were going to make it the retail price. Actually give 2 cents more to low-income customers because they really wanted to help low-income customers. So whether you say it's 10 cents plus 2 cents, either way it comes out around 12 cents. So Entergy lost that. Period. That isn't on the table. That's not what we're talking about. Everything else is decided except for how, not if, we're going to do consolidated billing. And over 6 months ago, the city council says, we're doing consolidated billing. Now, Entergy, tell us how you're gonna do it. And Entergy's, this is their last ditch argument. Well, we don't know
Well,
we can
this
do
is,
it, so there's no evidentiary record, so we can't do it, and blah, blah, blah. So it's a red herring. The red herring of the viability of the customers.
Is it okay if I share the screen and we go through
Oh, yeah,
maybe some of their talking points? I'll share the screen and we can really address several of their arguments.
Okay.
can I say one thing in the interjection in here?
Sure.
That is that every time that a local government wants to do something of a large scale, whether it be building a school or be building or inducing a company like Walmart to come to town, it is doing a cost shift. And these cost shifts are commonly in the large number as soon as you spread it out over 10 years. I'm sorry, $21 million a year, which is what you're talking about, $212 million or something like that over 10 years, is $21 million a year. For a city the size of New Orleans, that's small. That's
It's
not a
small number.
huge
It's
amount.
actually over 20 years, so it's $10 million a year. Okay,
That's nothing. That's almost a rounding error in the budget.
absolutely. And so, but also would tell you, in a way earlier prorate meeting, we talked about the fact that if we use the prorate rate design.
Okay, before we go on, Myron,
Yeah,
we need to stop right there.
okay.
Okay, let's take a look at what Entergy is paying their board of directors. $55 million a year.
Yeah.
And their CEO is $34 million a year. So that is $84 million plus or minus a little bit per year for 8 guys.
Okay.
Oh, and that's not counting their perks of transportation, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera.
Okay. Again, they got all kinds of business expenses in here. There's an additional $7 million a year we're paying for advisors that never seem to come up with a proposal that actually benefits the consumer.
In fact, the advisors were also quoted in the same document to provide information on the issue of how expensive it is to change the software, which is really the issue. And again, they didn't provide any evidence.
Okay, but the point I'm trying to make here, okay, is that we could say, okay, we're going to cap the board of directors and the CEO's pay for Entergy New Orleans at $10 million total. You guys figure out how you want that to go, but that's as much as we're paying. Now, if you want to pay that, okay, out of your profits, more money, have at it. But we're not going to pay more than $1.2 million per person a year to manage Entergy New Orleans. It is completely off the board. And until we start talking about real numbers with the city council of what it's costing us to maintain the status quo every year, except when we need a new, peaking plant. Oh, well, $350 million, boom, boom, boom. And let's remember the $200 million plus the additional profits from 7.5% to almost 12% now, okay, that they get paid above and beyond everything else they expend.
Okay, let me just say that I think these arguments are interesting, but they also are red herrings. That's not what this meeting should be about. This meeting should be about the question of how do we get, if Entergy opens the door and says, I'm gonna I'm gonna throw away all this effort to make a community solar ordinance just because I don't want to change my billing system, and it's gonna cost who knows how much money it's gonna do the billing system. That's really what this meeting is about. All
Is
this
it
other
possible to
stuff.
have them drop it though? If they're
Okay, Myron, okay, you're not understanding.
Okay,
Okay, what you're talking about, okay, is ultimately the root issue associated with it. Entergy is never going to talk about that. Never.
well,
And you've got a historical precedent
I know, but the thing is,
associated with them never, okay, ultimately looking at inward and saying, how can we cut costs to the customer? Never.
okay, look, let me just say something, Christopher. You're right. In fact, that's the reason why last year at this time, we were talking about in the resilience docket, I'm sorry, the distributed energy resources docket, we proposed to do a bridge to the future, and our bridge would say, we will change how the utility is regulated or remunerated, I should say, instead of based on how much money they spend, it's based on how well they perform. And this is what you're talking about. How do we get to that place? But in the short term, what Entergy has been doing is dragging their feet on the community solar docket, and they decided to make this the primary issue. And they say, we want an evidentiary hearing. Okay, we'll give you an evidentiary hearing. This is the evidence I'd like to put in into that hearing, which is what I'd like to show you on the screen right here. I mean, the screen we're looking at is the one I was talking about versus the one that Brendan has on the screen, if you don't mind. So,
Oh, what would you like to share? Because you had the email pulled up.
yeah, I want to,
Okay, go.
can you guys see my screen?
No, you're
Yes.
not sharing anymore.
All right, let me go back
We're
to
able
that.
to see your video of your face, but
Okay. All right, can you see the screen now?
it's loading. Okay, we see your email again.
Okay, so what I want to talk to you about, what I sent, okay? So he says, what the issue is, there is inadequate evidentiary record to prove that consolidated billing is cost effective. Okay, that's the issue they're talking about. I didn't bring up that issue. That's their issue. Okay, and I want to remind you the question about how expensive it is to implement any change has been the complaint about everything that anyone's brought up to Entergy in the last 10 years.
Is there a way to amend the proposal without consolidated billing if there are 44 states with solar programs that don't require it?
Yeah, we could.
Just,
And there's no doubt we could, but the city council has already decided they want consolidated billing.
Yeah.
I
Everybody's already,
noticed, Myron, I noticed on that list, on that map that you showed, that Massachusetts is part of the consolidated billing state, is one of the consolidated billing states. That's an Entergy dominated state, if I'm correct.
no.
Entergy, as a corporation, runs the nuclear plants in Massachusetts.
That's true. They do run the nuclear plants, but they don't run the distribution system. I'm gonna show,
Okay.
I'm drawing a curve right now with my hand on this map. Can you see it?
Go ahead and share the screen again. I was sharing the map that he was talking about. I
Okay,
switched.
share the map.
Myron, I have a quick question on the map.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, I'll bring it up
So
again.
last time I checked, New Orleans is not a state.
Okay, let me clarify that. Every state except for, I mean, there's only
How
two.
many cities or how many utilities have consolidated billing?
Wait. Just a minute. Let's confuse it.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
I know, but there's four confusions going on at the same time.
Well,
Okay.
not really.
Every state is regulated by a state regulator, except for two places in the whole country. New Orleans regulates its own utility, even though Louisiana regulates the rest of the state. And every other state in the nation is regulated by the state level regulator. But
Okay, so
the others,
so let me ask the question. Are they saying that only 9 states have it required? What do they mean implemented?
okay. Let me just finish answering the question about states and cities, okay? Okay, the regulatory bodies of the country, all but two are at the state level.
Right. You already said that.
Okay, sorry. So that's what the state issue is. When you say there are 44 states that have non-consolidated building, I'm sorry, that have community solar, and 35 of them don't have consolidated building, and they say 9 do, or whatever the right number is. Okay, that is that's obviously a minority of the states with community solar. But to say that a state has consolidated billing doesn't mean the whole state has it. It means that there's some
Ah,
utilities within that state that have consolidated billing.
Are you sure that that's what they're saying?
That's what they're saying. Just
Are you
because
sure?
yes, I'm sure because
Because I'm sure what they're presenting is whatever makes it look like only 9 states even have it at all.
that's right. That's what they're saying.
And
Only
you think that's accurate?
9 states have it, but even in those 9 states, not every utility in those states have community solar, much less consolidated
So
billing.
you're saying 35 states that have community solar programs have no consolidated billing.
Yes, that's
And
what
you
it
think
says.
you think that's accurate?
I suspect it is. I really do, because consolidated billing is a step beyond community solar. It's not required to have consolidated billing to have community solar. In fact,
Okay.
when we originally innovated it, and Dan, you were on the New Orleans Energy Policy Task Force way back when in 2005, as was Christopher. When we proposed our version of community solar, which we did, it didn't have anything about consolidated billing. And
Okay.
so I'm not surprised it's not so uniform as Madison Energy Industries thinks it should be. So, by the way, Madison Energy Industries in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin doesn't have consolidated billing according to this map. But nevertheless, okay, consolidated billing is a good thing because it's easier for a person to get it, and they don't get 2 bills, and they don't have all this confusion. They don't really need all that confusion. It's nice, and the city council wanted something, and Entergy was against it. They were against the whole community solar program, and the only thing left for them to cooperate with is the issue of community solar, not whether we have it, but what does it cost?
in some ways, we should be relieved that this is their last strong argument against.
And it's a
Sure.
it's a red herring argument. So, but I'm trying to say, okay, they're going to
Can-
create this
Let me ask one other question, Myron.
Yes.
Could the community solar company create a consolidated bill?
No.
Why
Let me
not?
explain. Okay. So what is it? Does it mean? Okay, you pay for electricity, right? So you get a bill from your utility, which in this case is Entergy. That's one bill. Now, if you want to be a subscriber to community solar farm, you've got to pay the community solar farm something to be a subscriber. That's another bill. Okay. Now,
Okay.
if you don't have consolidated billing, the cost of those of electricity and the cost of community solar added together is your cost, and then you get the net of it, and you get a lower utility bill. And that's what consolidating billing is. You don't get 2 bills, you get 1 bill. That's all it's
I
about.
think I understand that part.
Yeah.
So my question was, couldn't the community solar people create a consolidated bill?
The answer is yes, they could not, because they can only provide the bill credit. You still have an electric bill.
Yeah, so I guess it's no because
No, I'm saying using the information. I'm sorry, using the information from the bill. Couldn't they then present it in such a way that it would make it easy for the customer to understand?
Oh, yes, you could always make a better explanation, but you can't turn 2 bills into 1 bill unless you are the utility.
Mhm.
Understood.
All right, so that's
You've
what
got
it's
to
about.
have the primary, you've got to have the primary draw of money before you can apply a credit to that.
Right, you've got to apply the credit. So the customer sees, I'm paying Joe and Sam $3 and $5 each, and because I'm paying Sam $5 and I get to pay, then the net cost from paying the utility is lower, and that's why people still do community solar, but they see 2 bills.
I have a question. The reason for that, the reason the utility needs to control that is because Entergy for New Orleans, I believe, has something saying that they're responsible for all transmission of energy across power lines.
All right.
No, wait.
Is
That's
it?
another question, and it's not on the table. Because, yes, it's true that if you have a utility in the state, and many states have this, you have to be the only one with the power line to the house. And
Yeah.
if there's a power line near your house, you must connect to that utility. You can't have a spaghetti world like there was in Vietnam, where there's 7 different utilities and each has their own set of power lines. So that's part of the deal. That doesn't change anything. You don't need an extra wire to community solar. You just need a different accounting entry.
Yeah.
You need. Okay.
We need to mention that we have paid for all of the power lines several times over.
Okay. I know, Christopher, but I'm trying to stay on one subject because we keep getting sidetracked. We are halfway through the meeting and I haven't been started to talk about what I would like to put in the evidentiary hearing.
Sure. Yeah, I'll stop sharing. You can share your positive solution.
Let me see, get
The
to it again.
response.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'm talking about what's on my screen now. All right, so I just highlighted this. This is what Entergy wants. They want an evidentiary hearing to prove that consolidated building is cost effective. Not whether community solar is cost effective, but whether consolidated billing is cost effective. And the only thing that's up in the air is that what it costs to change the billing. That's the only thing that is up in the air. Everything else is a red herring. Okay. And the cost of creating the software to run the billing was actually presented in another docket, in the resilience docket. Okay. A few years ago, prorate says we would pay for a prorate. I'm sorry, that's over here. Where is it? Let's see. Where is it? Yes. In the resilience docket, prorate said we will pay for the cost of changing the billing software or creating the billing software to do a prorate pilot is $10,000. That's the only thing there is. And we have our own experts who came up with that number, and we can bring them to the courtroom and they can cross-examine us. And it's $10,000 of what it is to do prorate. Prorate is far more complicated than a consolidated community solar bill. So we can put this in the docket.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Myron, I don't think we confuse the issue with bringing in prorate. We could bring in experts who could tell us what it would cost.
Oh, I know. I don't disagree with you. We are promoting prorate in this discussion, but we are saying $10,000 is enough money to change the billing software to do something more complicated than community solar. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Okay.
how much do you think their experts are going to say?
Well, I don't know. I can tell you, it's the job of the proponent who has a message to say their message, and someone else can say their other message, and the city council can hear their evidentiary hearing. That's what Entergy wants. And this is what we can do.
What they're going to obviously do is they're going to claim that they have to buy a proprietary software package that totally redoes their billing system, and that this proprietary software package is going to cost them X millions of dollars.
Well, whatever. So what? Suppose it's $10 million. It's still a good deal. City council wants this. They want it so much that they're going to shift $200 million onto non-participants. So $10 million for software is not a big deal. It would not break the bank. The city council would still do it. But then the number's down on the table, and as long as it's not known, the utility can scare you into nothing because you don't have a number. So I'm saying, yeah, go ahead.
Just as a question to toss into the pot, how many customers are we talking about in New Orleans?
Okay, no, so wait a minute.
350,000 or so.
Yeah, around 300.
And what is the cost of mailing, since most of these bills, especially to the lower income residents, are going to be mailed? What is the cost of mailing?
The number of bills sent out isn't going to change. What's going to happen is that 5% or 10% of the bills are going to have an extra entry in it. This is your credit from community solar. You're not going to send out more or fewer pieces of mail. Yes, Tor, but listen, I really
but there will be if there's not consolidated. If it's not consolidated, you are putting in more pieces of mail.
No, you're not. Go ahead, Tori. You want to say something?
Oh, I
Everybody wants
just
to
can't
interrupt me.
resist. I grew up in a programming family, and I've worked on multiple businesses and software systems, and there's no guarantee, even if they spend 50 million, they're going to get a stable operating system and a stable system. The number of failures in old businesses like Entergy is over half.
Okay, just a minute. Again, I don't want to go into another red herring. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to deal with the evidentiary record. The evidentiary record is what they want, and I'm going to say, you
Okay,
want to
Myron,
look at,
look, you're repeating yourself.
yes, all
Okay,
right.
so what's your solution?
I'm trying to describe it.
Look, Myron, just put it out there.
I don't know what you mean by putting out. This is what I'm putting out. Okay. So Entergy claims that the cost of the whole project is commensurate with the size of the community, the aggregate size of all the community solar farms. And actually, in the actual document, if you read it, they said they're assuming that there's going to be 60 megawatts of community solar farms. And if you multiply by that by the right number, which is something like 1,500 kilowatt hours per kilowatt of solar panels. And so you can figure out how many kilowatt hours we're talking about based upon that number. Then you know how many kilowatt hours are on the table, and they cost 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And that tells you all the numbers you have to deal with. And they say the cost to ratepayers is proportional to the aggregate size of all community solar farms. But I disagree with that. That's another comment that's not true. Okay. It changes if we change the way community solar is done. If they're going to put it on the table, put the entire community solar project on the table at risk because they won't solve the billing software problem, then I'm going to suggest that there's a much better way to do community solar, okay, which is hybrid rooftop community solar. So I'm not saying this replaces the rooftops, the community solar you could do at 5 megawatts at a time. But guess what? It produces more kilowatt hours at 1/100th the price. How is that the case?
I have a question right there. Wasn't there a rooftop community solar program in 2017 in New Orleans, and it provided that same billing credit?
Yes, there was not. But let me clarify what you're saying. In 2018, the city council started this docket. That's why there's an 18 in this name. This docket started in 2018. Okay. So, and as though that we have 3 people in this meeting who are in the New Orleans Energy Policy Task Force, Myron, Dan, and Christopher. And we know we promoted community solar at that time, and it was put on the table in 2007 as a final report. But it wasn't until 2018 that the city took up community solar because all the previous time the utility stood in the way and stood in the way and stood in the way. We finally got a docket. And in 2019, the resolution came out. And this is closest to an answer to yes to what Brendan just said. In the 2019 resolution of the community solar docket, the first time through, it allowed for two different size community solar farms. One would be on a roof and one would be out in the field. And that's what he was talking about. But yes, those are rooftop community solar farms, but they weren't hybrid rooftop community solar farms. So let's look at the distinction. So a rooftop community solar farm is a solar farm you put on your roof and you can only use it for community solar. Guess what? Nobody would do it. Why? Because the solar panels would produce more valuable electricity to owner of the house than it would be to sell it to a community solar subscriber. So you're never going to put a rooftop community solar farm on your roof. And if you happen to have excess community solar panels in your consumption, call your electrician. He'll charge you $10,000 to rewire your solar farm so that you can sell half of the community solar way, and you still use the other half to lower your electricity in your home, which means it's completely not economical or feasible. So although there was a rooftop community solar project approved in the 2019 resolution of the community solar farm docket, it would never got off the ground because it didn't make economic sense. However, a hybrid rooftop community solar can be done right now. Okay. So And I'm going to tell you the benefits. I'm going to explain what it is. It rapidly increases the number of kilowatt hours that can be generated because you don't need to build a solar farm. You already have them. New Orleans already has 70 megawatts of rooftop solar already. And most of them are built on homes with inadequate energy efficiency applied, which means they're lipstick on a pig. You put a ring through a nose of a pig and you make the pig beautiful, but it's still a pig. And so there's literally a quote in the industry, putting solar panels on a home that doesn't have enough energy efficiency. It's called putting lipstick on a pig. And I'd say 80% of the homes in New Orleans with solar panels are lipstick on a pig, which is actually a benefit. I'll explain why. So if we have a home that already has almost as much production as consumption, a little bit of energy efficiency investment, and now we get more production than consumption, and we can sell those excess kilowatt hours in a community solar way. And the cost to produce them is the cost of building a negawatt hour, which those who may not know, a negawatt means the price of avoiding a kilowatt hour. And those are around 2-3 cents a kilowatt 2 or 3 cents a kilowatt hour now, which is way cheaper than building a new solar farm. And so we get these benefits. We finance energy efficiency because if we invest in energy efficiency, we free up kilowatt hours that can be sold. We can also do it with load flexibility. We can also add batteries to a home. Because why does adding batteries to a home matter? It's because a smart remuneration for solar electricity is bigger when the demand for electricity is higher and lower when the demand for electricity is lower. And if you make it at the wrong time, batteries can move it to the right time, and therefore batteries can be financed with hybrid rooftop community solar.
Even
And
without time of use rates?
you'd need a time to use rate, but you open up the door for that. Okay. So that's how batteries could be financed with hybrid rooftop community solar. And it gets rid of this artificial limit on the size of its rooftop solar array. If you try to put rooftop solar in New Orleans right now, in fact, almost anywhere in the country, you can't build it bigger than a certain amount because we don't want you to be mostly a generator. It's completely nonsense. Why not? That's the risk the homeowner should have, not the utility should worry about. Okay. As long as there's net metering, they never get a benefit of their excess. That's already enough disincentive to overbuild. But now we can get rid of that disincentive, and we'll have more kilowatt hours to sell to low income customers, and they'll be cheaper and faster. So let's explain what rooftop community solar is. So how does it work? So by the way, this is explained in one of our previous meetings on August the 19th. If you click on it, you'll see in the meeting where it's explained, but it's not so hard to explain now. Suppose you have a rooftop solar customer which has more production than consumption, okay? If they get paid with net metering, they still never get a negative bill because it never gives you a negative bill. It just gives you something for a future negative, not for a present negative. You never get a negative bill. So you have no incentive to have more production and consumption. All right.
Well,
Let's
and
put this.
any solar designer, for the most part, is not going to suggest that you put an array that's more than your consumption.
You're right. That's true. However, over time, if you put a solar panel on your roof, a solar array on your roof 10 years ago, before air conditioners got twice as efficient, or light bulbs got twice as efficient, or water heaters and dryers got twice as efficient. All you have to do is those things go bad and you have to replace it, and all of a sudden you've got more production and consumption. Okay. So even if you didn't do it intentionally 10 years ago, you probably have more production and consumption now. Okay. Just because you want the latest equipment. And the same people with extra money to put solar on the roof have the extra money to make their homes more efficient.
But you don't really have any evidence of this. You're just hypothetically stating that could be the case.
Well, it's likely to be the case because I've seen the homes that have rooftop solar and they are not close to being twice as energy efficient as the average house in New Orleans, which is wastes 4 times as much energy than it needs.
That's not answering my question. What you're saying is that there are a lot of houses now that have more capacity than their usage.
No, I'm saying that there are a lot of houses that are on the edge of that, and they may not have invested in changing light bulbs or changing air conditioners or changing water heaters because there's no economic value because their bill can't go below zero. But now we can give them economic value. And this is how you do it. So
You
they're right
change
on
the
the
law.
edge. What?
You'd have to change the law.
No, you would not have to change the law. They would not get income through net metering. They would get income through a change in the community solar law, which says you're
That's
allowed
a
to.
law.
Yeah, I assume it's solar law.
Right, that's right. It's a community solar law, not a
I'll
net
say
metering law.
policy.
Okay, so if you have a hybrid rooftop community solar, they can actually sell that kilowatt hour for less because the cost of generating is the price of a megawatt. A megawatt costs less than 3 cents a kilowatt hour. In fact, changing a light bulb costs less than negative cents. It costs
Yep.
it's less
Now
than
you
zero.
sound like Dr. Seuss.
No, no. If you change a light bulb, the cost to change a light bulb saves so much energy that you actually save more money than you spent, and therefore the price of the change is negative. And that's also true of a lot of other efficiencies. But on average, the price of changing light bulbs and air conditioners and water heaters and insulation is 3 cents a kilowatt hour or less, which is a lot cheaper than putting on solar panels. So if you have a kilowatt hour you can save at 3 cents, you could sell it at 4 cents or 5 cents, and the customer is going to get a 4 times higher bill credit than they paid for. Okay. So that means paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour, you'd be paying 3 or 4 cents for it and make a bigger benefit. So there's more.
So who's going to do that billing?
Well, that becomes a more interesting building. There's no doubt about it. I'm just telling you, if you put this into the discussion, you you show that the notion of this $200 million cross subsidy completely disappears. And it shows that since the utility decided they didn't want to go with the simple thing, all they got to do is pay $10 million and charge it to the customers and be on the way. But now we're going to make community solar really good. We're going to put this into the evidentiary hearing.
So
Like
what
you
your
are.
solution isn't so what your solution isn't necessarily solving the consolidated billing, but it's saying, look, now we're going to incentivize customers, so even if they have to burden the cost shift, there's still a way for them to benefit.
Yeah, we're going to get rid of the burden of the cost shift. There will not be any cost shift anymore.
But only those who participate. It's an opt-in. Like,
And look, right now we've been at this since 2006. No community solar farms exist yet. And even if this resolution passes and we get the utility to say, yes, we'll do community consolidated billing, we still have to wait 2 to 5 years for the first solar farm to be created. But if we have hybrid rooftop community solar, we can start selling community solar credits tomorrow, because I'm sure there's someone in New Orleans who has more production than consumption already.
do you think a better counter argument would be the onus is on Entergy to figure it out?
Well, I know, but
They're providing the public service. They're the ones that.
well, listen, I'm saying I agree with you. It should be that way. But if they want to create an evidentiary hearing, let's put everything on the table, not just the narrow question they've asked, because this really belongs in the docket.
So are there fears of competitors? Because that was part of their argument. Is there fear of competitors, even residential payers?
Okay.
They're just worried
This
about?
competitor argument is also a red herring.
Yeah.
Okay. All electricity goes through the utility. Okay. Whether the generator is owned by the utility or owned by someone in MISO or owned by someone across the street, the utility gets the cut on that because they're selling the electricity to the consumer. We're not changing the fact that they're the ultimate seller. We're only
Right.
changing whether they buy it from this source, or that source. That's all we're saying. And the people who build these generators are not the source. It's the person who owns the solar panel. And if the solar panel doesn't produce, he's out of business. And it's not the utility's responsibility to make sure some company that builds a solar panel, that panel only works. If you don't produce, you don't perform. It's a performance-based payment.
So is the reason that Entergy is putting up so much of a fight is that they maybe get kickbacks from certain providers or something like that they would benefit from
What
directly?
this is going to do is going to lower the price of electricity for everybody on average.
Yeah.
When people, if your neighbor pays less, you will effectively pay less. If the price of electricity goes down, they think their total position in their business model loses its economic viability a little bit, and they're against anything that's causing this. That's really their reason. Okay.
I
So,
didn't think they got, well, actually, I guess it is if the market price lowers. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So that's really what's going on. What's really going on is if they're going to try to open up this conversation over a $10,000 to $10 million cost of change in the billing, so then let's really stick it to them and say, listen, this what's really the issue is. It's not the price of the billing, it's the way this whole system is talked about. We have decided in 2006 or 7 that we were going to have community solar. Nobody came up with a viable economic model until Madison Energy Industries did in 2021 or 2022. They reopened the docket and we tried to conform to everything they wanted. And we didn't get it because Entergy refused to do consolidated billing. And I'm saying, okay, we're going to make it even better than what they wanted. Well, if they open up the evidentiary record, let's put something in there which really is a solution to the problem. There's not going to be any $200 million cross subsidy if we use this approach, because we're not going to be encouraging people to put electricity into the grid when the retail price is higher than the wholesale price. We're going to push it in when it's got the right values. And we're going to make community solar credits easier and cheaper to buy. And we're going to force everyone who makes a community solar farm has to compete with the hybrid rooftop community solar generators. Okay, because they can make electricity for sale in community solar farm at 1/4 the price that these big generators can make. Okay, and so this causes a marketplace that is better for the community and improves the low income customers to have more access to cheaper and faster kilowatt hours.
It's better for everybody except Entergy.
Well, Entergy can decide to be part of the thing. We actually had this conversation in 2017. Tom Stanton came in and did a talk to the city council in the city council's forum, and they pointed out that, and I'm going to let you talk in a minute, Dan, that these ways to make electricity cheaper, the utility can either get on the bus or the bus leaves without them. And that's what they're trying to do. They want to make sure that we drive by looking through the rearview mirror, which is the way utilities navigate. Okay, Dan, go ahead.
I remember a long time ago reading a lot of utility laws, and one of them was you had to be a generator, and there was only one generator in the region that was Entergy. And the slippery slope that Entergy is fighting is allowing more and more generators. Now, it's one thing to have net metering and individuals allowing any excess electricity going to the grid, because that helps the grid. It helps Entergy be more resilient. It's another thing to allow community solar, because now you have reasonably scaled generators that have a certain ability. There'll be only a few of them. Maybe we'll get up to a dozen community solar farms, but it's manageable, and their electricity can be regulated and monitored and put into a certain category or certain area that Entergy can then just say, look, we're doing this. It's a good greenwashing. We're giving some more electricity to this community that's renewable. What you're suggesting, Myron, is a complete break from the monopoly. What you're suggesting an entire shift away from the law, which is there's only one generator, and that's Entergy.
Okay, I want to clarify this. The law doesn't say there's one generator. The law says, and I think I know the law better than you, but you might. I'm not an attorney.
Tell me what it says.
The law says that you must buy electricity from the distribution system that has a wire running within 10 or 30 feet from your house.
No, that's not the law about generation.
It's a law about connecting to the utility.
Right. That's a different
If
section.
the utility isn't not just generating, a utility isn't selling electricity it makes. It used to, but now maybe it's 30%, 20%, 80%. It varies during the day because they connected to MISO.
Right.
So, and it turns out, and I was watching this in
But
2000.
all of them are licensed generators. It's not,
No,
it's,
well,
yes.
it's
Everyone on MISO is a licensed generator.
no, that's not true. Let me clarify that. MISO is a wholesale marketplace. There are generators and there are purchasers. Okay. I don't know what the ratio is.
I'm
Maybe it's
saying the generators are licensed generators. I'm not saying who the purchasers
I
are.
agree. But MISO has a high percentage of purchasers. Okay. And all those purchasers and generators get together and they make a market and they have it all figured out how they're going to set the prices, which we don't need to get into side discussion on that. But because when Entergy joined MISO, they formally said, we're not going to be your exclusive generator. And that was part of the deal when they joined MISO. And so
Mhm.
they're obligated to use the MISO price, the price that they set for us. So before they joined MISO, we did not know what the wholesale price was. We didn't know the ratio of costs to wholesale to retail, but now it's public knowledge. And right now, I'd say 2/3 of the time, the wholesale price is under 3 cents a kilowatt hour, and probably averages around 3 cents a kilowatt hour. And it's been that way for over 10 years. Even though sometimes the price goes down to less than to minus 1 cent a kilowatt hour. You can say, how can it be minus? Well, I'll explain to you if you want. But oftentimes the price goes over $2 a kilowatt hour, but it averages around 2 or 3, 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And we pay the average price, and that's called the cost of energy. And every
Mhm.
one of our kilowatt hours are pegged to that wholesale price plus the cost of service. That's what a kilowatt hour is charged. But the retail price changes every 5 minutes because that's which generator has won the auction at that point. And that generator might be 1,000 miles away in Wisconsin. And of course, if they're further away, they have to pay more wheeling charges, the cost of moving electricity. The greater distance, that's the called the wheeling charge. And just while we're on the subject of far-flung electricity generators, in Iowa, electricity is commonly sold at minus 1 cent a kilowatt hour. And you'd say, well, how can a windmill make money if they're selling it at minus 1 cent a kilowatt hour? Is because there's a production tax credit made by the federal government to encourage wind of 2.2 cents a kilowatt hour. That goes directly in the pocket of the owner of the generator, so we can sell it at minus 1 cent and still make money. And that's the price of a lot of wind energy in the middle of the night. Like right now, Iowa farms are probably selling electricity at minus 1 cent a kilowatt hour and laughing all the way to the bank, and everyone else is enjoying cheap electricity.
And you're
But
wondering, how do we get that into New Orleans homes?
and we get that into New Orleans homes too. That's part of the mixture of wholesale pricing that gets to us. Obviously, we don't get pure electricity from Iowa, lots of other electricity sources, but certain times they win the auction, say 2 o'clock in the morning, they maybe winning the auction. But even though it was purchased in Iowa 2 cents, we paid 2 cents to wheel it to New Orleans, so we wound up paying it at 1 or 2 cents. So what we actually pay is the price we pay here. This is what's going on. The law says we have to buy from the local utility, so we don't have spaghetti in our transit distribution system, but not generators. The city Entergy is no longer vertically integrated utility in that all electricity they sell is what they make. They no longer have that monopoly.
Mhm.
That's the deal of being in the MISO.
Did
So,
well, just to pause for a moment, sake. So do you think a lot of the issues are that the laws are written with sort of clear delineation between purchaser and generator, and a lot of our solutions sort of mesh the two, where you're a
well,
generator?
as soon as the utility allowed net metering, because the city council said you will have net metering. That decision was made in 2006, less than a year after Hurricane Katrina. You will have net metering, and you will give people bill credits based on the retail price. As soon as you do that, you've effectively said we're going to let one customer make electricity and sell it to another, and we'll subsidize the difference between the retail and the wholesale price, so everyone gets a retail credit even though what they produce is a wholesale quantity. And that's where the real cross subsidy is. And that's one of the reasons why probate was invented, to avoid that cross subsidy. And it was recommended within the community solar docket, what was the right formula for remuneration? And I told prorate was, and they didn't buy it because that they just couldn't understand it. It's too complicated for them. Or Entergy was saying, we don't want that because it's going to ruin our ability to control the marketplace. They want it to be expensive or they didn't want to change their billing. Maybe they honestly didn't want to change their billing. But ultimately, where we are now is that 10.5 cents to 12 cents a kilowatt hour is based on the NREL report. That's what it costs to build a 5 megawatt generator, a community solar farm. Not on whether or not community solar has to be done with a 5 megawatt community farm. But if you assume you want a 5 megawatt community solar farm, then you need 10 cents a kilowatt hour as the cost of the remuneration. So by figuring out the question backwards, we came up with an ask backwards answer, but that's the answer we have in New Orleans.
Mm.
But the real issue on this table is none of that. The real issue is what does it cost to do the billing?
Yeah.
And it's not, whether it's 10,000 or 10 million, it's still bookus compared to everything else we're talking about. Okay.
For Entergy, it actually costs quite a bit more. For Entergy, it costs quite a bit more because what Entergy is ultimately making money based on the true flow of money from the customers to those large generators. When they are now controlling the flow of the energy all the way from the
I have
small
to interrupt
customers.
you. Excuse me, I have to interrupt you. The utility regulatory model, the monopolistic model, the Entergy signed on and the utility regulates, makes it illegal for the utility to make any money on the difference between wholesale and retail price. It's illegal. If the wholesale price goes up and the retail price goes down, too bad. And if there is an excess income, the utility has to give it back. And there's the excess is insufficient income to pay the expenses of utility, then the utility gets to raise the retail price. There's always going to be parity, and that parity has to be resolved within a year or two. So it can never be any income based upon the difference in the wholesale and retail price. The amount that's
that's what they're hiding that income by
No.
paying their board of directors so much.
No, that's considered a cost. Namely, the utility regulator says, okay, what does it cost to run your utility? And they come up with, say, $800 million a year. And then what's it cost to buy the electricity? 300 million. Okay, it's going to cost 1,100 million or 1.1 billion to run the utility. Okay, fine. How many kilowatt hours do you sell? 10,000 or 10 million, whatever it is. And the number comes out, you divide one number by the other, and that's the price per kilowatt hour. It has nothing to do with profits.
I think Paul froze for a second there.
Now look when you come back, you can finish your sentence, Paul. Okay. Anyway, so
I don't know if Myron has something to say. No, I'm just kidding.
anyway, but this is how it works. And what's on the table? They want to open up an evidentiary record. Great. Let's cram it down their throat. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Myron, it seems to me what's happening here is you want to throw a different bird into the mix.
Right.
Right. And I don't think that's what we should do.
Well, maybe not. But the point is, I think you're right, Dan. From a certain point of view, it's not politically effective. But
I don't see what's to gain. I mean, it should be a separate docket. It should be the next step. It should be something else. But I mean, you could use it as, hey, we're not asking for this. We're just asking for this. But don't suggest that as, hey, we should just do this now. Because that's not going to happen.
Well, that's why I was thinking the more effective argument might be, wow, that's tough. You know, the onus is on you to figure it out.
Yes.
Say budget at the end of the year for the next year, do what you have to do. The city council is backing it and says they want it. So there's already the city council backing of the idea.
I really think the city council did not seriously consider hybrid rooftop community solar. I really believe the Alliance for Affordable Energy did not.
No, it's just you, Myron.
Well, did you think it should be another docket then, or a separate?
No, it belongs in this docket. This is the community solar issue.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's more like net metering. It's the individual homeowner.
No, community.
That's not what community solar is. Community solar is creating separate generators, not individual homeowners.
excuse me, in my opinion, community solar is a extension of net metering, where the only difference is ultimately is that the generator is not on your house. And that is the ultimate
Conceptually,
what community solar is.
but not from Entergy's standpoint.
No, it is. They were against net metering in the first place as well. And they're against
Net
this.
metering isn't on the docket.
It's light net metering because the price.
It's not on the docket.
You can say that, but the
We're not
remuneration,
discussing it. That's
The
not what the hearing is about.
the hearing they want is not about the remuneration. It's about what is it going to cost to do the billing. But
Right.
the community solar docket is proposing a remuneration absolutely equivalent to net metering, namely the retail price, flat retail price, which is 12
It's
cents.
not considering it. That's what it is, right?
That's what has been decided so far, yes.
Okay.
And until the whole thing's decided, nothing's decided, but that's where the docket is right now. Yes, no doubt about it.
When's the submitting of a rebuttal or comment or intervening?
The bottom line is the Entergy has said we want an evidentiary hearing. And the council hasn't said we're going to give you one. If they give you one, then we're going to say, fine, give them one and open up the docket to provide not just this narrow question, but the broader question of how to solve the $200 million issue and how to get more community solar credits or kilowatt hours out there faster and cheaper. We're going to add that to our proposal. They're going to say no, but we're going to say why we should do it. And we're going to say, not only that, we believe that we have evidence to say that the billing issue has cost around 10,000, not 200 million. Okay, but we don't know that, but I think that's what we should be able to inject into the evidentiary hearing and be cross-examined on it.
No. So they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So anyway, that's my contention. Now, I have asked some people to hold back and don't say anything until I said this, and I don't want to shut them up permanently. So, Chris, would you like to say something, or Dan?
If that's or Thor or Dan.
I didn't shut down their ability to talk, but they seem to have shut themselves down. So, Chris or Tor would like to say something?
That's best practice.
There's Thor. Thor's going to jump on, I think.
Tor, your audio is off.
Oh, he's eating.
He's eating. Okay.
So, should I stop the recording
go.
for now and we can do a wrap up, or should
Byron, I'm gonna side with Dan here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm torn with the idea of engaging Entergy in any kind of thing that they want to do, because I've never seen any indication that making a good rational argument, research, whatever, has made any difference at all.
Agreed.
Okay.
None whatsoever. So, but let's say that we're going to engage it. I like the idea of getting them on record. Okay. Oh boy, wouldn't that be fun?
Right.
I would volunteer my time. I would travel to New Orleans
Oh
again.
my God.
Okay. In order to brief the lawyers about what they need to fucking talk about. Okay. And I got hundreds, thousands of pages that I've written about this stuff. But the bottom line is that Dan's point about breaking new ground and something that is so specific seems like an error to me. Do I think that the lawyers should be briefed? Absolutely. I think that, we need a good lawyer, okay? A great lawyer. But I broach 3 quick points. The first is Alan Snyder. Alan came to me, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, about putting solar arrays on top of dumps around New Orleans area. And he was working with several people that had the money to do it. He wanted to know, who we needed to talk to, things along these lines. And I helped him as much as I could, but I don't know how great that wound up working. But nonetheless, he worked through the economics of it, the location, where to put them, how much it was going to cost. Okay, so that's a name, one name.
Now, where did you say he was going to put them?
On top of dumps.
On dumps, DUPS?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Landfills that were covered up,
Okay.
okay, with sewage sludge and all that shit that they pulled out of, the lower Ninth Ward and that area.
Okay. The major methane generators.
Right. Okay. He's going to put rooftop solar over those dumps to ultimately generate a secondary source of income.
Okay.
And so that's one name. The second thing is that I really believe that instead of playing defense, which I think we're playing right now, we might be better to go to, the city council members and say, okay, here's our plan for the next 10 years. These are the things that we want to happen. Are you willing, okay, to ultimately look at executive pay, at board pay, okay, transportation, food, meals, whatever. Okay, let's remember that there's 7 different entities that operate out of the same building. Okay, and most of those different entities that are operating out of the same building have got the same board members. Okay, they're getting paid tons of money from, there may be, the token guy from New Orleans that's on the Entergy New Orleans, and there's the token guy from Louisiana, but most of them are the same. When I researched their annual reports, I could see the same people getting paid, okay, walking from one office to the next. Okay, so there's that. And then the third thing is that I'm really going to try to throw some FUBAR in 2026 into this whole FERC, monopoly that's been created, this ever increasing profit model for utilities. And I just think there's a reckoning that needs to be going there. You figure this country is paying somewhere between 1.2 and 1.8 trillion dollars a year, okay, to utilities. At least 30% of that cost is associated with overhead. We expect we expect 501c3 corporations to operate on 5%. Why does a utility get 30%? And let's remember that we paid for all the lines, all the distribution, all the power plants multiple times over. So there's 3 things. Number 1, Alan Snyder, he's got the economics down for New Orleans, where to put them, how to ultimately structure a community solar. The second point is that you got to get city council focused in on the future, not the past. You got to remind them of the past, but if you don't put something that's looking forward, okay, then they're just going to try to cover their ass. That's what politicians do. And then the third thing is, you know, how how do we get 12, 15, 18% profit margin on top of all this other stuff that we're paying into a utility for what? What are we getting for it? And I don't know that you're getting anything other than higher utility bills. So
Okay.
that's my 3 points.
All right, anybody else want to chime in? And we had Danny Stetz show up for a few minutes and didn't have a chance to
Well,
talk.
he jumped off a little bit ago.
Right. Anyway, so we are
9:20.
20 minutes over time. We really should quit unless someone has something really important to say. I'd appreciate it if
I think if you look at the slide deck that Entergy produced, and you look at
Well,
slide,
it was my production. It wasn't Entergy slide deck.
oh, really?
Yeah, it was a slide deck made from the thing they sent out in the email.
Oh my goodness! You
Yeah,
should work for Entergy.
I put it in the chat.
I see it. I thought that was an Entergy slide deck.
No, but it pulls from their document and yeah.
Using AI?
Yeah, Notebook LM, but it doesn't pull from anything outside of the document.
Yeah, no, I mean it's pretty clear. But if you look at slide 8,
Yeah.
it speaks to what I was referring to, which is they're a franchised utility, and individual homeowners are not. And they're with this community solar, these community solar entities essentially become franchised, I think. But I don't think it's a slippery slope, Myron. What you're talking about ain't gonna fly. And I like it as a disruptor, but if that's your goal, so be it. But you're not going to help community solar. You're going to hurt it.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we had our interesting conversation, and I hope I clarified some things correctly and made some points that you guys agree with. I just wanted to make sure that everyone remembers. I'm going to change the screen for a moment
Sure.
over here, because it's ironic that the video that was made first ends with this slide, because what ProRate is trying to do in the distributed energy resources docket is take the $30 million on the table, take 10% of it, hire some experts, and build a bridge to the future, which is amazing that the terminology is very similar here.
Yeah.
And it can be done in a smart way. We change the incentives. We don't give people, utilities don't get more money if they spend more money. On the contrary, they get more profit if they spend less money, and give us electricity at lower price, more reliable electricity, and help the poor person, and et cetera. So there's other goals besides spending more money, which is what the utility is trying to do. So anyway, hope that ties this up, and thank you guys for coming, and I think this was an interesting conversation. So good night.
Pertinent, very pertinent.
Okay.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Good night.